Zara had never felt so nervous in her entire life. Standing at the entrance of the Galactic Medical Station, she clutched her medical bag tighter and took a deep breath through her gill-like breathing apparatus. The pale blue skin on her hands trembled slightly as she watched dozens of different alien species walking through the corridors. This was nothing like the quiet underwater hospitals back on her home planet. She had graduated top of her class from the medical academy on Hydros Prime, where everything was calm and predictable. The patients were all the same species as her, and she knew exactly what to expect. But now, as part of her advanced medical training, she had to work with completely different life forms. Humans were supposed to be one of the easier species to treat according to her professors. How wrong they would turn out to be. Dr. Rodriguez, the chief medical officer, greeted her with a warm smile. His dark hair was streaked with gray, and his kind eyes immediately put Zara at ease. He had been working with alien medical staff for over 20 years and knew exactly how overwhelming the first day could be. "Welcome to our medical station," he said, speaking slowly so her universal translator could keep up. "I know this must feel very different from your home world. Don't worry, we'll take things step by step." Zara nodded gratefully. She had studied human language for months, but hearing it spoken naturally was still challenging. The translator helped, but sometimes the meaning got lost between different ways of thinking. "Your first patient is in room 15, Dr. Rodriguez," continued, handing her a medical chart. "His name is Jake, and he's 28 years old. Came in yesterday after a small accident at work. Nothing serious, just some bruises and scratches. We're keeping him overnight for observation." Zara looked at the chart, comparing it to the medical scanner she had brought from her home planet. The device looked like a smooth blue crystal that glowed softly in her hands. It was designed to work with Hydrosian physiology, but her professors had assured her it could adapt to other species with some adjustments. "Is there anything special I should know about treating humans?" she asked, her voice carrying the musical quality that all Hydrosians had when they spoke. Dr. Rodriguez paused for a moment, thinking. "Just remember that humans can be more emotional than your people. They might seem worried or scared even. About small things. Also, they're very different physically from Hydrosians. What seems normal for them might look strange to you." Zara nodded, though she didn't fully understand what he meant. How different could they really be? All the medical textbooks said that basic biology was similar across most species. Walking down the corridor toward room 15, Zara reviewed what she knew about humans. They were land-dwelling creatures, much like several species she had studied. They had internal skeletons, circulated red blood, and breathed oxygen through their mouths and noses instead of gills. Their body temperature was slightly higher than Hydrosians, and they reproduced differently. But the basic medical principles should be the same. She knocked gently on the door and entered the room. Jake was sitting up in bed, looking much healthier than she had expected. He had brown hair and green eyes, and appeared to be recovering well from his accident. When he saw her, his expression changed to one of curiosity and slight surprise. "Good morning," Zara said carefully, practicing the human greeting she had learned. "I am Zara, your medical practitioner for today. How are you feeling?" Jake shifted uncomfortably in his bed. "Oh, hi. I'm feeling fine, really. Just a bit sore from yesterday, but nothing serious." He seemed nervous, which Zara attributed to meeting an alien for the first time. "I need to perform a routine examination," she explained, activating her medical scanner. "This device will check your vital signs and overall health. It won't hurt at all." As soon as she turned on the scanner, it began glowing more brightly and making soft, chiming sounds. Zara frowned as she looked at the readings. According to the device, Jake's body temperature was elevated in certain areas, and there seemed to be unusual tissue density in his lower body region. "Is everything okay?" Jake asked, noticing her concerned expression. "Please remain calm," Zara said, trying to keep her voice professional. "I'm detecting some irregularities that need further investigation." She moved the scanner closer to different parts of his body, and the readings became more concerning. The device was showing increased blood flow and what appeared to be swelling in his pelvic area. In her medical training, these symptoms pointed to a serious inflammatory condition that required immediate attention. Jake became increasingly uncomfortable. As Zara continued her examination, he kept shifting his position and seemed to be getting more anxious by the minute. This only made the scanner readings worse, as it detected his rising stress levels and physiological responses. "I think there might be a problem," Zara said, her medical training taking over. "I'm seeing signs of significant inflammation in your lower body. This could be serious inflammation," Jake asked, his voice cracking slightly. "I feel fine." "Maybe." "Your machine is broken," Zara shook her head. "This scanner is very advanced. It's designed to detect medical problems that might not be obvious to the patient. I need to run more detailed tests." She pulled out additional medical equipment from her bag, each device more sophisticated than anything the human medical staff typically used. Her people had developed incredibly sensitive medical technology, capable of detecting the smallest changes in body chemistry and tissue structure. As she worked, Jake became more and more uncomfortable. He tried to explain that he felt perfectly normal, but Zara was focused on the alarming readings from her equipment. Every scan showed the same thing: what appeared to be a dangerous inflammatory condition that was getting worse by the minute. "I need to call Dr. Rodriguez," Zara said, her training telling her that this was beyond her experience level. "This condition requires immediate attention from a senior medical officer." Jake watched in growing panic as the alien nurse gathered her equipment and hurried toward the door. He had no idea what was happening, but her obvious concern was making him very nervous. He tried calling after her, but she was already in the hallway, speaking rapidly into her communication device. Within minutes, Dr. Rodriguez arrived with 2 other medical staff members. They looked puzzled as Zara showed them her scanner. Rediasen explained what she had discovered. Human doctors exchanged glances, clearly confused by what they were seeing. "According to my equipment," Zara explained urgently, "the patient has severe inflammatory symptoms that are continuing to worsen. The swelling appears to be in the reproductive region, and his stress responses are indicating significant discomfort." "Doctor?" Rodriguez looked at the readings, then at Jake, then back at the readings. He was beginning to suspect what might be happening, but he needed to handle the situation very carefully. The last thing he wanted was to embarrass either his new alien colleague or his patient. "Let me examine the patient myself," he said diplomatically. "Sometimes our different medical technologies can interpret things differently as the human." Medical team gathered around Jake's bed. Zara stood nearby with her scanner, convinced that she had discovered a serious medical emergency. She had no idea that her advanced medical technology was about to teach her a very important lesson about the differences between species, that her first day treating humans would become a story she would remember for the rest of her career. Stage was set for a medical misunderstanding that would change everything she thought she knew about practicing medicine across different species. Dr. Rodriguez entered the room with a calm expression, but Zara could see the concern in his eyes. Behind him came Dr. Chen, the station's specialist in alien biology, and Nurse Williams, who had been working with different species for years. The small hospital room suddenly felt very crowded. "Show me exactly what your scanner is detecting," Dr. Rodriguez said, trying to keep his voice steady. He had seen many misunderstandings between different species over the years, but this situation seemed particularly delicate. Zara held up her glowing blue scanner and pointed to the readings. "Look at these numbers," she said, her voice filled with worry. "The tissue density in his lower body has increased by 30% in just the last 10 minutes. The blood flow patterns are completely abnormal, and his body temperature is rising in a very specific area." Dr. Chen looked at the scanner display, squinting at the alien symbols and numbers. Even with her training in xenobiology, the Hydrosian medical technology was far more advanced than anything humans used. The readings looked serious, but she suspected there might be more to the story. "Jake," Dr. Rodriguez said, turning to his patient, "how are you feeling right now? Any pain or discomfort?" Jake shifted uncomfortably in his hospital bed, looking around at all the medical staff staring at him. "I feel fine, honestly. Maybe a little nervous with everyone looking at me like something's wrong, but physically, I'm okay." "See," Zara said, her translator making her voice sound more urgent. He says he feels fine, but that's exactly what my medical textbooks warned about. This condition can be painless in the early stages, but it becomes very dangerous if not treated immediately. She pulled out another device from her medical bag, this one looking like a silver wand with pulsing lights. This scanner can detect cellular changes at the molecular level. If I'm right about his condition, it will show inflammation markers that human equipment might miss. Dr. Rodriguez watched nervously as Zara activated the second scanner. Was beginning to understand what might be happening, but he needed to handle this very carefully. One wrong move could embarrass everyone involved and potentially damage the important medical exchange program between species. The new scanner began beeping rapidly as Zara moved it over Jake's body. When she reached his lower abdomen, the beeping became almost frantic. The device's lights flashed red and alien symbols appeared on its small screen. "This is worse than I thought," Zara said, her blue skin turning a deeper shade as her stress levels rose. "The cellular activity is off the charts. According to my medical database, this matches the pattern for acute inflammatory response syndrome. If we don't act quickly, it could spread to other organs." Dr. Chen stepped forward, trying to get a better look at the readings. "Zara, can you explain what your scanner considers normal cellular activity for a human male?" "Of course," Zara replied, adjusting her scanner settings. "I calibrated it using the data from my medical school textbooks. Human males should have very stable cellular activity, especially in the reproductive region. Any significant changes indicate potential medical problems." Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Chen exchanged a meaningful look. They were both beginning to understand the source of the confusion, but explaining it would require extreme delicacy. "The problem is," Dr. Chen said carefully, "human physiology can be very different from what medical textbooks describe. Sometimes what appears abnormal to medical equipment is actually perfectly normal for humans." Zara shook her head firmly. "I appreciate your concern, but I've been trained to trust scientific evidence over assumptions. My scanners are detecting clear signs of a medical emergency. We need to prepare for immediate surgical intervention." Jake's eyes widened in alarm. "Surgery? For what?" "I keep telling you, I feel perfectly fine." "That's exactly what makes this condition so dangerous," Zara explained, her medical training taking over. "Patients often don't realize how serious their situation is until it's too late. The inflammation I'm detecting could be blocking important blood vessels or putting pressure on vital organs." Nurse Williams decided to try a different approach. "Zara, in your medical training, did you study the differences between how hydrosian and human bodies respond to stress?" "Stress?" Zara looked confused. "What does stress have to do with this?" Well, Nurse Williams continued, "Human bodies react very differently to emotional stress than hydrosian bodies do. Sometimes stress can cause physical changes that might look like medical problems to equipment that isn't designed for human physiology." Zara considered this for a moment, but then shook her head. "Even if stress is a factor, the readings I'm getting are far beyond normal stress responses. Look at these numbers. They're increasing every minute we delay treatment." Indeed, her scanners were showing that whatever she was detecting was getting more pronounced. The more attention Jake received from the medical staff, the more worried he became, and the more his body's natural responses intensified. "I need to contact the surgical team," Zara said, reaching for her communication device. "This patient needs immediate medical intervention. I won't let him suffer because of delayed treatment." Dr. Rodriguez gently placed a hand on her arm. "Zara, I appreciate your dedication to patient care, but I think we need to explore this situation a bit more before we take such drastic steps. Medical misunderstandings between species can be more common than you might think." "Misunderstanding?" Zara's voice rose slightly. "Dr. Rodriguez, I respect your experience, but my scanners don't lie. This patient has a serious medical condition that requires immediate attention. Every minute we wait makes it worse." To prove her point, she ran the scanner over Jake one more time. The readings were indeed higher than before, and new warning symbols were appearing on the display. "You see?" she said, showing the screen to everyone in the room. "The condition is progressing rapidly. Need to act now, or this patient could face serious complications." Dr. Chen realized they needed to bring in additional help to resolve this situation. The cultural and medical misunderstanding was spiraling out of control, and they needed someone with expertise in interspecies medicine to help bridge the gap between Zara's advanced technology and human medical knowledge. "I think we should call Professor Martinez," she suggested to Dr. Rodriguez. "This situation requires someone with more experience in cross-species medical interpretation." As they prepared to call for additional help, Jake lay in his hospital bed, feeling increasingly uncomfortable. He had no idea what was happening, but the alien nurse's obvious concern was making him more nervous by the minute. Little did he know that his growing anxiety was only making the medical readings worse, creating a cycle that was convincing Zara more and more that she was dealing with a serious medical emergency. The stage was set for an even more complicated misunderstanding, one that would require all their combined knowledge and patience to resolve. Within minutes, Professor Martinez arrived at the hospital room, slightly out of breath from rushing across the medical station. He was a tall, thin man with graying hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. As the head of interspecies medical studies, he had dealt with countless misunderstandings between different alien species and their medical practices. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked, looking around the crowded room where tension was clearly building. Dr. Rodriguez quickly explained the situation. "Our new Hydrosian colleague has detected what she believes is a serious medical emergency in our patient. Her scanners are showing readings that indicate severe inflammation and swelling, but we suspect there might be a cultural misunderstanding involved." Professor Martinez nodded thoughtfully and turned to Zara. "May I see your scanner readings?" Zara eagerly showed him the display, pointing to various symbols and numbers that were flashing red with increasing urgency. "Professor, these readings are unmistakable. The patient has acute inflammatory response syndrome affecting his reproductive system. The swelling has increased significantly since I first examined him, and his cellular activity is far beyond normal parameters." "And you're certain these readings indicate a medical emergency?" Professor Martinez asked gently. "Absolutely," Zara replied without hesitation. "In my medical training, these exact symptoms were used as textbook examples of conditions requiring immediate surgical intervention. The longer we wait, the more dangerous it becomes for the patient." Professor Martinez studied the alien medical equipment carefully. He had seen Hydrosian technology before and knew it was incredibly advanced, capable of detecting the smallest changes in biological systems. The problem was that it was designed for a completely different species, with very different physiology. "Zara," he said carefully, "can you tell me what you know about how human males respond to stress and anxiety?" "I know that humans have stress responses like most species," she replied. "But stress doesn't cause the kind of severe tissue changes I'm detecting. These readings indicate actual physical swelling and inflammation, not just emotional responses." Jake, who had been listening to the medical discussion with growing worry, finally spoke up. "Excuse me, but could someone please explain what's happening? Everyone keeps talking about inflammation and swelling, but I honestly don't feel anything wrong." Professor Martinez sat down in the chair next to Jake's bed, his expression calm and reassuring. "Jake, I need to ask you some questions, and I want you to be completely honest. Are you experiencing any pain or discomfort anywhere in your body?" "No. Sir, I'm a little sore from my accident yesterday, but that's normal. Other than feeling nervous about all this medical attention, I feel fine." "And when did you start feeling nervous?" Professor Martinez continued. Jake thought for a moment. "I guess when the nurse started looking worried about her scanner readings. Before that, I was actually feeling pretty good." Professor Martinez nodded and turned back to Zara. "I think I understand what's happening here. The readings your scanner is detecting are indeed real, but they're not indicating a medical problem. They're showing normal human physiological responses that don't exist in Hydrosian biology." Zara looked confused. "I don't understand. My scanner is detecting clear signs of tissue swelling and increased blood flow. How can that be normal?" "Because," Professor Martinez explained patiently, "human males have physiological responses that are completely different from Hydrosian males. What your scanner is interpreting as dangerous inflammation is actually a perfectly normal response to stress, anxiety, or certain other stimuli. But the readings are getting worse, Zara protested, checking her scanner again. Look, the numbers have increased even more since we've been talking. Professor Martinez smiled gently. That's because the more attention we pay to the situation, the more anxious Jake becomes, and the more anxious he gets, the more pronounced his body's natural responses become. It's a cycle that feeds on itself. Dr. Chen stepped forward with a medical tablet displaying human anatomy charts. Zara, let me show you some diagrams that explain the differences between human and Hydrosian physiology. Probably didn't cover these details because they're not considered medically significant. As Dr. Chen began explaining the anatomical differences, Zara listened with growing disbelief. According to the human doctors, what she was detecting was not only normal, but completely expected under the circumstances. This can't be right, she said, shaking her head. If what you're saying is true, then my medical training has been completely wrong about human physiology. How can such dramatic tissue changes be considered normal? Because humans evolved very differently from your species, Professor Martinez explained. What seems dramatic to your equipment is actually a very mild response by human standards. Your scanners are so sensitive that they're detecting changes that human medical equipment wouldn't even register. Zara looked at her scanner, then at Jake, then back at the human medical staff. Her entire understanding of medicine was being challenged, and she wasn't sure what to believe anymore. Let me demonstrate, Professor Martinez said. Jake, I want you to take some deep breaths and try to relax. Think about something pleasant and calm. Jake closed his eyes and took several deep breaths, trying to push away his anxiety about the medical situation. As he relaxed, Zara watched in amazement as the readings on her scanner began to slowly decrease. The numbers are going down, she said in wonder. But how is that possible if he had a medical condition? He never had a medical condition, Dr. Rodriguez explained. Your scanner was detecting his body's natural response to stress. As he relaxes, those responses naturally decrease. Zara stared at her scanner in disbelief. Everything she had learned in medical school was being turned upside down. Her advanced technology, which she had trusted completely, had led her to completely misdiagnose a normal human physiological response. I don't understand, she said quietly. My professors assured me that Hydrosian medical technology could accurately diagnose any species. How could I have been so wrong? Professor Martinez put a gentle hand on her shoulder. You weren't wrong, Zara. Your technology is incredibly advanced, and your medical knowledge is excellent. The problem is that medical education about other species is often incomplete. No one can learn everything about every species in medical school. But I almost recommended surgery, Zara said, her voice filled with horror. I could have seriously harmed this patient because I misunderstood his normal biology. But you didn't, Dr. Chen said reassuringly. You followed proper medical protocol by seeking a second opinion when you encountered something you weren't sure about. That's exactly what a good doctor should do. Jake, who had been listening to the entire conversation, finally understood what had happened. So you thought I had some kind of serious medical problem, but it was just normal human stuff. Zara nodded, her blue skin flushing with embarrassment. I'm so sorry. I thought I was trying to save your life, but I was completely misunderstanding your biology. Hey, don't worry about it, Jake said with a smile. I'd rather have a doctor who cares too much than one who doesn't care enough. Besides, I learned something new about myself today. Professor Martinez looked around the room at the medical staff and smiled. I think we've all learned something valuable today. This is exactly why we have interspecies medical exchange programs. Real understanding comes from working together and learning from our mistakes. As the tension in the room finally began to ease, Zara realized that her first day treating humans had taught her more about medicine than months of studying textbooks. The real challenge wasn't just understanding different technologies or medical procedures, it was understanding the fundamental differences between species and how those differences affected every aspect of medical care. The next morning, Zara arrived at the medical station earlier than usual. She had spent most of the night reviewing her medical textbooks and comparing them with the human anatomy charts that Dr. Chen had given her. The more she studied, the more she realized how much she didn't know about treating other species. She found Jake in the hospital cafeteria. eating breakfast and looking much more relaxed than he had the day before. When he saw her approaching, he smiled and waved her over to his table. "Good morning, Jake," said cheerfully. "Look like you didn't sleep much last night?" Zara sat down across from him, her blue skin slightly darker than usual from exhaustion. "Spent the night studying human physiology. I wanted to understand what happened yesterday and make sure I never make the same mistake again." "You know," Jake said, taking a sip of his coffee, "I was thinking about what happened, and I realized something. We're just trying to help me, even though you were wrong about the medical emergency. You really cared about making sure I was okay." "But I almost caused you serious harm," Zara replied, her voice filled with regret. "If Professor Martinez hadn't intervened, I might have insisted on unnecessary surgery. That's not the kind of doctor I want to be."
Jake leaned forward,
his expression serious. "Zara, can I ask you something? In all your medical training, did anyone ever tell you that it's okay to make mistakes as long as you learn from them?" Zara thought for a moment. "On my homeworld, medical mistakes are considered very serious. We're taught that good doctors don't make errors, especially ones that could harm patients." "Well, that's where human medicine is different," Jake said. "Here we believe that making mistakes is part of learning, especially when you're dealing with something new. Important thing is that you ask for help when you need it, which is exactly what you did." Their conversation was interrupted by Dr. Rodriguez, who approached their table with a cup of coffee and a warm smile. "Mind if I join you? I wanted to talk to both of you about what happened yesterday." Gorsara said, gesturing to an empty chair. "I was just apologizing to Jake for my medical error." Dr. Rodriguez sat down and looked at both of them thoughtfully. "Zara, I've been thinking about your situation, and I have a proposal for you. How would you feel about helping us develop a new training program for medical staff who work with different species?" Zara looked surprised. "You want me to help with training? But I'm the one who made the mistake." "That's exactly why you're perfect for this job," Dr. Rodriguez explained. "You understand both sides of the problem. You know how advanced alien medical technology can misinterpret human biology. You've experienced firsthand how cultural differences can affect medical care." Jake nodded enthusiastically. "That sounds like a great idea. Zara, you could help prevent other doctors from making the same mistakes you did." "But how can I teach others when I'm still learning myself?" Zara asked uncertainly. "That's the point," Dr. Rodriguez said. "Learning is a lifelong process in medicine. Even doctors who have been practicing for decades encounter new situations that challenge their knowledge. What matters is how we handle those challenges." Over the next few hours, Dr. Rodriguez explained his vision for the new training program. Medical staff from different species would work together to understand each other's biology and medical practices. They would share their mistakes and successes, creating a database of knowledge that could help prevent future misunderstandings. "We could start with basic anatomy lessons," Dr. Rodriguez suggested. "Each species could teach the others about their unique physiological characteristics. For example, you could explain how hydrogen medicine works, and we could teach you about human stress responses." Zara began to feel excited about the possibility. Could also compare different medical technologies and how they interpret biological data. "My scanner might be too sensitive for human patients, but it could be very useful for detecting subtle changes in other species." "Exactly," Dr. Rodriguez said. "And Jake, we were hoping you might be willing to help as well. Having a patient's perspective could be valuable for understanding how medical misunderstandings affect the people we're trying to help." Jake was surprised by the request. "Me, but I'm not a medical professional. What could I possibly contribute?" "You could help us understand how patients feel when there are communication problems between different species," Dr. Rodriguez explained. "Your experience yesterday could help us develop better ways to keep patients informed and comfortable." During medical examinations, as they discussed the training program, more medical staff began joining their conversation. Dr. Chen brought her xenobiology expertise. Nurse Williams shared her experience working with alien patients, and Professor Martinez offered his knowledge of interspecies communication. "This could be bigger than just our medical station," Professor Martinez said excitedly. "We could develop a program that medical stations throughout the galaxy could use. Think of how many medical misunderstandings we could prevent." Zara felt a growing sense of purpose. Instead of feeling ashamed about her mistake, she was beginning to see it as an opportunity to help others. I would love to be part of this project, but I still have so much to learn about human medicine. That's what makes you perfect for this, Dr. Chen said. You'll be learning alongside the people you're teaching. It's not about being an expert. It's about being willing to share your experiences and learn from others. Over the following week, Zara threw herself into the project with enthusiasm. She worked closely with human doctors to understand the differences between species. She shared her knowledge of hydrocyan medicine with her colleagues. Her advanced medical scanner, which had caused so much confusion, became a valuable tool for demonstrating how different technologies could interpret the same biological data in completely different ways. Jake became a regular volunteer for the training sessions, helping medical staff understand the patient experience during cross-species medical care. His willingness to share his story and his sense of humor made him popular with both human and alien medical staff. You know, Jake said to Zara one day as they were setting up for a training session, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad. You misdiagnosed me. Zara looked at him in surprise. Why would you say that? Because if you hadn't made that mistake, none of this would have happened, Jake explained. Gesturing around the training room where doctors from 5 different species were preparing to learn from each other, your error is going to help thousands of patients receive better medical care. Zara smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with her body temperature. I think I'm beginning to understand what human doctors mean when they say that mistakes can be valuable learning experiences. Exactly, Jake said. And now you're turning your mistake into something that will help others. It's what good doctors do. As medical staff from different species began arriving for the training session, Zara felt a sense of pride and purpose she had never experienced before. She was no longer just a doctor treating patients. She was a bridge between different worlds, helping to create understanding and prevent the kind of misunderstandings that had once caused her so much worry. Her journey from embarrassing mistake to meaningful contribution was just beginning. But she already knew that this experience would shape the rest of her medical career. 3 months later, Zara stood in the main medical training center, looking out at an audience of doctors, nurses, and medical students from 12 different species. The room was filled with beings of all shapes, sizes, and colors, each bringing their own unique medical knowledge and cultural perspectives. Welcome to our quarterly interspecies medical conference, she announced, her voice carrying clearly through the universal translators. Today we're going to discuss something that every medical professional has experienced: learning from our mistakes. In the front row, Jake sat with a group of patient volunteers who had agreed to share their experiences with cross-species medical care. He gave Zara an encouraging smile and thumbs up, a human gesture she had learned meant good luck. 6 months ago, I made what I thought was a terrible mistake, Zara continued, her blue skin glowing softly under the conference room lights. I misdiagnosed a human patient, convinced that he had a serious medical emergency when he was perfectly healthy. I was embarrassed, worried, and certain that I had failed as a doctor. She paused, looking around the room at all the different faces watching her. But that mistake taught me something more valuable than any medical textbook ever could. It taught me that good medicine isn't just about advanced technology or perfect diagnoses. It's about understanding, communication, and the willingness to learn from each other. Dr. Rodriguez, now the director of the expanded interspecies medical program, stepped forward to join her on the stage. When Zara first came to our station, she brought with her some of the most advanced medical technology in the galaxy. But more importantly, she brought curiosity, dedication, and the humility to admit when she didn't know something. The audience listened intently as Dr. Rodriguez explained how Zara's initial mistake had led to the development of new training protocols that were now being used at medical stations throughout the galaxy. Her experience had become a teaching tool that helped prevent similar misunderstandings between different species. Today, we're going to demonstrate how different medical technologies can interpret the same biological data, Zara said, activating a large display screen. This is something every medical professional needs to understand when treating patients from other species. She brought out her original hydrogen scanner, the same device that had caused so much confusion months earlier. This scanner is designed for aquatic species with very stable physiological responses. When I used it on a human patient, It detected normal stress responses as dangerous medical conditions. Jake stood up from his seat in the audience. "Would you like me to demonstrate again?" he asked with a grin. "That would be perfect," Zara replied, grateful for his continued support and friendship. As Jake walked onto the stage, Zara explained to the audience what they were about to see. "Jake is going to show us how human physiological responses can be misinterpreted by medical equipment designed for other species. Watch the scanner readings as he experiences different emotional states." She activated the scanner and held it. Near Jake, the readings showed normal human baseline measurements. Then she asked him to think about something that made him nervous. "I'm thinking about my first day at a new job," Jake said. And immediately the scanner began showing elevated readings that looked alarming to species. Unfamiliar with human stress responses. "Now relax and think about something pleasant," Zara instructed. Jake closed his eyes and smiled. "I'm thinking about my favorite vacation spot," he said. And the scanner readings immediately returned to normal levels. The audience murmured in amazement as they saw how dramatically the readings could change based on emotional state alone. For many of the alien medical professionals, this was the first time they had seen such clear evidence of how differently species could respond to the same stimuli. "This is why we need programs like this," announced Dr. Chen, who had become the lead researcher for the Interspecies Medical Database. Every species has unique physiological characteristics that can be misunderstood by medical professionals from other worlds. Over the next several hours, medical professionals from different species shared their own stories of misunderstandings and learning experiences. A reptilian doctor from the desert planet Zarian talked about how he had initially struggled to understand why mammalian patients needed such frequent hydration. A crystalline being from the mineral world of Praxis explained how she had learned to interpret the emotional aspects of medical care that were foreign to her naturally logical species. "The key," explained Professor Martinez during his presentation, "is not to eliminate mistakes, but to learn from them and share that knowledge with others. Every medical error that we openly discuss and study becomes a stepping stone toward better patient care." As the conference continued, Zara felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Her original mistake had grown into something much larger and more meaningful than she had ever imagined. The Interspecies Medical Program had expanded to include over 50 different species, with training centers on dozens of worlds. During the lunch break, Jake approached her with a special surprise. "I have something for you," he said, handing her a small wrapped package. Inside was a custom-made medical badge. That read, "Dr. Zara, Interspecies Medical Specialist." Below that, in smaller letters, it said, "Learning from mistakes, one patient at a time." "The entire medical staff wanted to give you this," Jake explained. "You've changed how we all think about medicine and patient care." Zara felt tears forming. In her eyes, a human emotional response she had learned to appreciate. "I can't believe that my biggest embarrassment became my greatest achievement." "That's the beautiful thing about mistakes," Jake said. "They're only failures if you don't learn from them. You turned yours into something that's helping patients across the galaxy." As the afternoon sessions began, Zara watched as medical professionals from different species worked together, sharing knowledge and learning from each other's experiences. Her advanced scanner was now part of a comprehensive medical toolkit that combined technologies from multiple worlds, creating more accurate diagnoses for all species. The patient volunteer program that Jake had helped establish was now a standard part of medical training, ensuring that doctors understood not just the technical aspects of treating different species, but also the emotional and cultural considerations that affected patient care. "You know," Jake said to her as they watched a group of young medical students practicing with equipment from 5 different worlds, "I think you've become exactly the kind of doctor you always wanted to be." Zara nodded, feeling a warmth that came from knowing she was making a real difference in the lives of patients throughout the galaxy. "I've learned that being a good doctor isn't about never making mistakes. It's about being brave enough to admit when you don't know something, humble enough to learn from others, and generous enough to share your knowledge so others can benefit." As the conference ended and medical professionals from across the galaxy prepared to return to their home worlds, Zara knew that her journey was far from over. There would always be new species to learn about, new medical challenges to face, and new opportunities to turn mistakes into learning experiences. But now she faced those challenges with confidence, knowing that every error was simply another chance to grow, learn, and help others. Her mistake had taught her that the best medicine happened not when doctors were perfect, but when they were willing to be human regardless of which planet they came from.